Well, good morning, everybody. And today, I kind of want to start our discussion in the tropics because just keeping an eye here over the last 24 hours or so on the kind of infrared cloud field as viewed here from satellite across the Atlantic, I'm just starting to see a few signs that would suggest that this tropical season is going to really start to get going. We have better upper level conditions as the MJO kind of swings back around because of the increase in the trade winds across the Pacific, and then the westerly wind bursts in the Indian Ocean. What that does is that just kind of takes the lid off of the upper level, more suppressive motion we've seen in this area as of late. In other words, it's making the atmosphere more conducive to deeper convection. And now you can start to see these deeper waves coming off of Africa, producing a lot more robust convection. So the long story short here is we're moving toward the climatological peak of the hurricane season and activity's ramping up. Now, I'm going to be watching these storms in through here pretty carefully, but I want to take note and just let you know that this cluster in through here as well has shown some pretty kind of healthy signs as of late. But I think what we have to be watching here is the newest wave coming off of Africa and what's going on right here in the near term. So the National Hurricane Center, of course, is keeping on top of this. I imagine that they will start to increase some of these likelihoods going forward. They've got a 20% chance of the system I mentioned a moment ago at developing in the Caribbean, where the Caribbean's had very high wind shear and strong trade winds all season long. May be a better environment in the near term. And they've also given that next wave coming off of Africa a 20% chance as well. So I'll be watching their updates all day today. They're the best in the business, and we're going to keep an eye on them. But some of the longer term model forecasts, you can see another wave coming here. Here's the one that's already out moving. And it's this guy right in through here that I'll keep an eye on. Now, the reason for that is some of the forecast models, as they do, tend to latch on to really rapid development of these systems and take them just racing over here toward the United States. So this is the European ensemble spread on low pressure development, and you can see that it's trying to take something in through this part of the of the Caribbean. Now the 6Z GFS wanted to take this system and just plow it into New Orleans. And now remember, that is highly speculative, and the GFS is notorious for rapidly ramping up systems 8, 10, 12 days in advance. And that's what we're talking about here. The 0Z run, I can just show it to you. This is from the GFS. And we're going to play this quick because I want you to see what it's trying to do here. This would be this next Tuesday. Okay, so this is almost a week from now. The 0Z run tried to take that system, just roll it right up the coast of Florida and into the Carolinas. So I just want to let you know that we're just looking at that time period where things start to get a whole lot more active going into the beginning of the month of September. And while you cannot trust any individual model run like this, that's not how they work. We don't use them that way. It is an indication that I think some of the activity could increase. So let's keep an eye on it together, all right? The next thing I want to show you is even without tropical systems, we have seen a tremendous amount of rain that stretched from Texas into southern Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. And the heaviest rains in the last day have been really confined right into this area, where some places picked up between 2 and 10 inches of rainfall. So these are the kind of rains we expect out of a tropical system that we're getting from just a slow-moving front on which a low kind of formed and just slowly moved in this direction. So this map I'm drawing on looks at the last 7 days of total accumulated precipitation, and it just shows us all these very heavy rainfall amounts down here across the south, which were honestly very well predicted by the models. Now, as we look forward into this forecast, this is from the Weather Prediction Center, WPC, and they're showing us the risk of heavy rainfall. So we still have the active southwest monsoon. We have a little wave that's moving through parts of the upper Midwest, but of course down here, this is where we continue to see our highest risk today. But I want to take note of the weak front that's moving through the upper Midwest, the northern plains stretching back into Montana. There is flash flood risk here in this part of Montana going forward. Now, to see all of this, I'm going to take you to some satellite data, because even this morning as the sun was rising, we continue to see those storms dropping a tremendous amount of rain over parts of Louisiana, Mississippi, getting into Alabama. Here's the wave that's moving through, that's bringing that front. So there's some cooler air behind it, but it is going to stretch up and push against the mountains. And I just got to show you yesterday, this is pretty awesome. There's an upper level low sitting here. over parts of Washington and British Columbia, and it is just really spinning. And what's interesting about the upcoming storms is that this upper level low is actually going to take a very small vorticity maximum around its base and kick it into Montana, increasing chances for storms here as we go forward. So let's go take a look at all of this. This is the high-res NAM from this morning. Let's get it up to about when you're probably going to look at this, about 9 a.m. this morning. As we play it forward, let's watch down here first. This is our low that's moving out of Louisiana, slowly trying to get its way to the east. But you see it just continues to sit and spin there. And that's where we're going to continue to see the chances for showers and storms through Wednesday and into Thursday. A lot of scattered storms over parts of the southeast, stretching back into central Texas. Now, the second part of this is the low that's early this morning sitting over parts of Minnesota and Wisconsin. It just slowly moves its way here over the next few days through the Great Lakes and into New England. So we're kind of rocking back and forth, showing you the chances for some scattered storms. But in the northwest, if we just watch this, let's get back to Wednesday here. You can see the storms that are going to come out here as those two waves kind of time up, increasing the chances for storms in the overnight on Wednesday and even into Thursday. And what's going to happen here is this whole area is going to have another shot at rainfall as we go forward. And to see that, this is the next 7 days from the WPC. So all these pieces kind of put together, there's our slow-moving low that sits here and all the storms out ahead of it. We then have the low that's here today that moves into New England over the next 48 or so hours, and that's one that's leaving the front that's pushing up against the Rocky Mountains here. But then there's going to be a low later on this weekend that goes up into parts of the Hudson Bay, and it's draping a front that comes right in through here that really initiates some storms. And those storms are going to be feeding on open Gulf moisture at that point. The only problem with this forecast is how we've seen the transition a bit farther east with the heavier rains. And really what that did was rob more of Nebraska and South Dakota of some of these good rains. The WPC is still aggressive in Kansas, but some of the other models have backed off a bit on those Kansas rains, and Kansas desperately needs this rainfall coming through. So if we look at the next 2 weeks, this again is precipitation anomalies for the next 7 days. And again, you can kind of see some places I was talking about missing out on some of these rains. Big question mark, I think, is down here farther to the south. But then as we go back and look at week 2, this is where the pattern kind of drops this trough in the midsection of the country. There's open Gulf moisture and big question marks on tropical systems. So I'll have to keep a very close eye on that. Now, just thinking about this precipitation pattern, the big section in today's report deals with some of the stuff we're seeing from the crop tours that are out right now. And just want to make a point here that in there I provide a whole season animation of soil moisture. Plus I show you the seasonal precipitation ranks and temperature ranks just to kind of add some context to this. But I want to make sure you're using the forecast tools we provide in that report so you can go and see the individual locations and their history. But this map we've been looking at, this is the latest soil moisture data map. Just continues to show those areas that are under significant drought stress this year. And with the rains that are forecast to come through, there will be places that are missed by this. On the temperature side of this forecast, this is today's highs. You can see the position of that front, plus the cooler air that is around the cloud cover in the south. And as we go into Thursday and Friday, most of the heat stays in the western United States toward the Columbia Basin and the Central Valley. Cooler air sags a bit farther to the south, finally pushing out some of the heat that we do have in the plains earlier this week. So there's Saturday's highs, getting into Sunday. And this is the day I'm really starting to key in on. Notice how there's some warm conditions building back into here. There'll be moisture coming up on this, and that front comes sliding through, initiating the chances for those storms in this area later this week. And a lot of uncertainty on it, but I'll just keep watching it. And this is next Monday and Tuesday, so the heat rebuilding in the west. And that's going to be a theme. If you just look at the next 15 days, looking at a 5-day sliding window of temperatures, by the time we start to September, more heat pouring here into the western United States and really much above average temperatures in the Canadian Prairie. Now, above average temperatures in the Canadian Prairie in early September feels pretty nice, but there is no indication, as I've stated all week, that we're going to get some major cold air intrusion through the beginning of September that could just bring in a very untimely frost into this area. Just no indications of that yet. And while we see some heat here, again, I want to point out that that Russian heat wave is still very much on as you look over the next 10 days. And we're going to really start an in-depth discussion about South America here in these coming videos and reports as they work their way toward planting. Because the latest forecast, no indication of an early onset of the monsoon yet. But it's still August. And then drier conditions south. So we got a lot to be talking about here as we transition toward harvest in the northern hemisphere and planting in the southern. So we'll talk to you again very soon. Thanks.